Welcome one and all, how's it going, what you guys up to? It's-a me, 3D, FX. Here to tell you guys about one of the most devious licks I've ever hit on a classmate. One of the biggest come-ups I had in all of high school, financially I mean. While simultaneously being one of the biggest scumbag moves I've ever pulled on anyone ever, is also one of the cleanest finessings I'll ever pull in my life. This is the story about how I stole my classmate's vape, kept it for the entire year, and he never found out. As always, I gotta say, I am in no way, shape, or form admitting to or condoning any of the actions portrayed in this video. Please do not attempt to recreate or reenact any of the actions you hear me describing. These videos and their contents are for entertainment and educational purposes only. Enjoy the video. Our story takes place not even a few months into sophomore year. As a matter of fact, it was right in the middle of the saga of the most toxic girlfriend ever. On this specific day, at unbearable o'clock in the morning, so about 9 o'clock, I'm sitting in my second class, not really considering how I'm going to be spending the rest of my day. You know, I'm just peacefully sitting there, not hurting anybody, not doing anything, not plotting against anyone, just talking to an associate of mine. Let's call him the governor, just for the sake of it. Even though he had more of a Martinez vibe to him, let's just call him the governor for the sake of... I only remember him for having a pretty good conversation about The Walking Dead at the time. Because, you know, that was all the rage. This was back when season 6 or 7 was coming out, so everyone was still watching at this point, as far as I know. You know, it was a pretty big talking point back then. Back to real life, towards the end of this class, the governor is talking to me about how his schedule changed, he wasn't sure which class he was going to get, and lo and behold, he got a class with me in it. He had already just previously came from a classroom that we had together, and it was kind of weird that immediately he gets this class too. So me and the governor get to hang out for an hour and a half, like sometimes like 2.5 hours, depending on the day. So the bell rings and me and him start walking out. And let me just preface this by saying that there's someone in our class who's almost famous. He's famous to me for going to the vape shop that is right next to the school. He goes there every day. He sits there, he lounges because, you know, they have like a lounge in front of the store, you know, in front of the kiosk, the clerk or whatever. It's a chill spot. You guys get the point. It's set up sort of like in a square formation with all the couches, and there's a coffee table in the middle with all these different magazines and stuff on it. Yeah, so this is the kind of guy we're referring to. He's the kind of person who immediately leaves school to go hang out in the vape lounge. I guess it's like a diet hookah bar nowadays, but anyway, that's what I knew him for. And to shed a little bit more light on just what kind of person this guy is, he definitely seems like the kind of person who's way too good to be hanging out with the rest of us, well, pretty much the popular kids. I don't know what else to call us. Basically, anyone who had any sort of social standing went to this corner. They went to the corner of this sort of well-known foreign market. Let's just call it that. He would just never stop over there. He never said hi to anyone. He never talked to anyone. At least, we never had any mutual friends in common as far as I knew. I only ever heard this man speak like twice. The entire time I knew him, I only heard his voice twice, and I can barely remember what he sounds like now. Back to the moment. So, the bell rings, and we all get up. We're all getting up to leave. He zips up his backpack, the guy across the room. The governor packs up his stuff and pats his eye patch twice, you know, for good luck. I'm already prepared to jettison out of the door, like 100-yard dash out of this class. Or at least I would be if I wasn't in the middle of a conversation with this guy. If I wasn't talking to the governor, you know, I can never tell if he's winking or blinking. We're having some actual communication issues with this guy. I'm trying to conversate with him while 20 to 30 people are making noises in front of us. They're all walking out of the door. We're last at this rate. But so is the guy who was across the room. We haven't even given him a name yet. Let's call him Negan, since we're using Walking Dead terminology for the names. Me and the governor are sort of towards the absolute end of the line as everyone's leaving the room. Negan is about 2 or 3 people away from me. That is to say, a group of 4 or 5 people are in between Negan, me, and the governor. The group of people separating me and Negan as we're walking out eventually just walked around him. I guess they just walked around him because he was too slow. Or it was because he found a more interesting conversation to invest himself into while he's walking. So he's not even paying attention to anyone or anything behind him. And understandably so, you don't exactly expect someone to pickpocket 1,000 you. Anyway, after that group of people separating us disperse, me and the governor are walking closer behind Negan at this point. Like mid-conversation as I'm talking to the governor, I walk up a bit closer to Negan. I took my right hand like so, pinched one of his zippers on the outermost pocket of his backpack. With mantis precision, I unzipped his backpack very clean and quietly. As easily as shaping a rainbow in mid-air, I unzipped his backpack, and it's wide open. Now, I gotta say, this isn't an uncommon occurrence between me and the governor. This isn't unlike me to just randomly unzip his backpack very quietly to test out my sneaking skills. No, this is just a little bit different considering this is less of an associate and more of a complete stranger, so it's not like I'm on a first-name basis with this guy. I could barely come up with a fake name for him, so I just started using Walking Dead characters, you know? And speaking of the governor, he's just looking at me while I do this in absolute shock and horror. Luckily, he's not making enough noise and drawing attention to himself for Negan to just look behind him and see the governor making probably the most scared pog face you've never seen in your life. I can't stress that enough. The governor is bedazzled by my tactics. He's stunned. But he's also very obviously staring at the wide open, fully exposed backpack of this complete stranger that we don't even know his name. We just know him for sitting in class and trying to look cooler than the rest of us. So of course his backpack flap is flapping in the wind. Try saying that 3 times fast. And I choose to look into it because usually whenever I do this, I'm usually looking for something like gum. I'm just looking for something to eat usually whenever I'm looking into someone's backpack. I peer into his backpack a little bit. I pull back the strap very gently as we're walking. Keep in mind, I'm walking in tandem with this guy. I'm very closely following him, like almost step for step. The person he's talking to is not even acknowledging his presence. It's like they're talking to each other, but facing forward, if you've ever had a conversation like that. It's almost like a Better Call Saul style sort of walking and talking, if you know what I mean. Looking down into Negan's backpack, would you believe it? Clear as day. Oh, it's beautiful. I'm shell-shocked. I'm bedazzled. I'm freaking twitchy at what I find in Negan's knapsack. Oh, man. In the very center pocket, like what you would usually use for pencils and erasers, he's got his $150, maybe even nowadays it'd be like a $175, like full-on box mod with a nice tank on top of it. Just peacefully sitting in there, not doing anyone any harm, not obviously sticking out. It's just casually sitting there. And he still hasn't noticed me. Negan still hasn't looked back. His friend doesn't even care. Negan's too busy talking to Dwight to notice that me and the governor are hitting the fattest lick of the week. After a full-on 10 seconds of realizing what is in this guy's backpack, I just left his backpack like fly freely open to see if he would notice, and he didn't for a good 10 seconds. By now we're already walking out of the double doors that lead out of the hallways that are in the classrooms. So we're out in the quad basically. And like a warm shower, the waves wash over me, and I get a feeling that starts rising up from within me. And it says, before I can even recognize it, Thievington Stealing Son jumps out of the fray, and into my mind, a feeling of just kleptomania overtakes me, and I reach into Negan's knapsack, and luckily I'm wearing a hoodie. I slip it into my sleeve, never to be seen again. I quickly stuff it in my pocket. Nobody even knew what hit them. There were like 5 or 6 kids walking around us. I shouldn't call them kids. Let's call them fellow saviors, because that's Negan's fan base, effectively. The governor's still walking beside me, and just as easily as I unzipped it, I zipped it back up. Negan didn't even notice. Dwight didn't notice, and neither did the governor for a minute. He didn't even know what I did. There's 5 or 6 other saviors walking around him. They don't even realize what just happened. I feel it up in my pocket to make sure this is even reality. I wholeheartedly thought this was a dream until I feel the governor tap my shoulder and he says, "What did you just do? What'd you take? Give me some of that." And I tell him, clear as day, like it actually happened, open and honest, I say, "I took some gum, governor." Knowing full well that's not at all what I had in my pocket, but I did actually have some gum on me. It was mine. So I gave him a piece right then and there. Immediately, just like that, I've got the governor off my trail. He believes that I actually took gum from that guy. I gave him like 2 pieces. He just walks away. He completely believed me after I pulled out the gum. He just walked away. He didn't even question it. Me and the governor part ways. At that point, if it wasn't obvious, Negan had already just walked off to his other class. Negan was walking south and I'm walking east. And as I'm walking away from all that, I'm just trying to comprehend what happened. I just debated this guy that I barely knew, when all I was looking for was food, or maybe just to joke around with a potential new colleague in this case. No. Here in reality and on planet Earth, I just scammed the hell out of this guy. I pretty much lied to my friend to make sure he wouldn't just randomly blurt out, "You did that?" or something. He was just that kind of character. The governor is way too obvious with, if you do something wrong in front of him, he'll scream it out so everyone knows what's happening. By the time I collect myself and process everything that just went down, I'm inside the locker room because I had gym after. Completely walk by my locker in the office, everything. I'm probably looking sketchy as hell as I'm doing this. I dip into the first open stall I see. I whipped it out of my pocket. I'm looking it over. I'm giving it the best observations it could ask for. I start writing down serial numbers. I start looking at all the parts and what the brand is. It was a Sageli. I'll try and put a picture up on screen if I can even find one. As soon as I gauge like its settings and the wattage and how full the batteries are, I start ripping this thing in the stall. I start opening a fog machine effectively, and people start noticing. A couple people who knew me on a first name basis stop over at the stall and they're like, "What are you doing in there? We're gonna tell the teacher if you don't share." And I tell them, "It's not me, bro. It's not me. It wasn't me." After like 2 minutes of wasting what is supposed to be dress out time, I usually never ever dressed out, so this is pretty much like 5 minutes of sit around in a locker room and, either enjoy the sausage fest or look at your phone. I typically chose the latter, but in this particular circumstance, I step out of that stall, I've got a hell of a head rush. I'm zooming, I'm zipping past those halls. I'm looking at all these people dressed out and I'm thinking, haha, you guys are getting scammed. Why are you dressing out? You might as well just like keep your clothes on. Besides, I need to keep my pants on so I have the extra pockets to make sure this thing is with me at all times. I'm not leaving this thing alone. I'm not pulling a Negan. I'm not just gonna leave my valuable possessions to be randomly pickpocketed upon. As far as I'm concerned, this is a stick with a lighter and I'm packing heat. The rest of the day carries on. Absolutely nothing special happens. As far as I can remember, that's it. That was the most eventful part of my day, was that come up. Until after school, when I met up with the most toxic girlfriend of my life. And can you guys guess what her reaction is to hearing this whole story and basically how my day went? She straight up laughed at the guy. She laughed at the guy and patted me on the back and said, "Good job, babe." Listen. See, most normal people, after hearing a story like that, would usually tell you shouldn't do that. That's wrong. You shouldn't take things that don't belong to you, let alone pickpocket people. What does she do? She says, "Good job," and encourages it. That's red flag numero, who knows what number we're up to at this point. She's practically the referee with how many red flags she's dealing out these days. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the time I pickpocketed Negan. I hope you guys got some sort of moral out of this, that being not to ever do this. This is unbelievably dangerous and stupid. I could have gotten my freaking butt kicked because of that. Leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed. Have a lit day. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Stars I see for